So Philadelphia had its second annual Rocky Day on December 3rd, 2024. The first was last year, 2023, December 3rd, because the movie first premiered on December 3rd, 1976. And this year, earlier this month in December, they had a Rocky Fest, which was an all-week event that included a bus tour of all the spots that were in the Rocky movies. There was an event at the zoo because Rocky went to the zoo, and like a date night thing in the Penn Ice Arena because that's where Rocky took Adrian, and a bunch of different things. Even something with dogs because Rocky had a dog. So it was a whole week of events related to Rocky. Uh, and I had always thought that Rocky was a perfect Philly movie because it's the underdog story um, of a amateur down and out fighter who had a chance at fighting the champ. And I didn't know. Only recent, not that recent, but a few years I did find out that when Sylvester Stallone wrote Rocky, he had been broke. He had like a few acting gigs before, but he was not um, like having any success with it. So he had to, I believe, he had to sell his dog because he couldn't pay rent before that, and then he he's tried to sell his script to movie studios. At first, they didn't want him to be in the movie, but eventually, I guess they allowed him to be in the movie, and they bought his script and became a major success. So that, in and of itself, was um, like an underdog story within an underdog story, and there's sort of this idea of Philadelphia being an underdog city, and this is kind of true with a lot of our sports teams. The Sixers have not won um, in NBA championship since 1982. The Eagles had one Super Bowl win. What was it, 2017, 2018, and other three other Super Bowl appearances, but hadn't won those times. Uh, Phillies, they won World Series like earlier, I think 2008, 2009, but otherwise hadn't won since and I think like the 80s or early 90s or something. So, despite being a major sports market, relative to the sports market uh, size of the fan base, Philadelphia has not. Their sports teams have not won very many championships. So oftentimes the sports teams are kind of underdog teams. But is Philadelphia really still an underdog city? At the time when the first Rocky premiered in 1976, um, this was um, this was after deindustrialization started happening in Philadelphia, and you could tell in the movies the sort of where Rocky's house is and where a lot of the filming took place was in Kensington. So it had gotten worse since it was filmed, but it was already appeared to be in decline in 1976. Um, and this is due to Philadelphia having been a major uh, industrial and manufacturing city, and the whole country started moving away from um, uh, industry in that way, away from manufacturing. But Philly's decline started late because it was not like a single manufacturing industry city, because it had um, many different um, things that you used to make. It used to make locomotives, it used to make saws, sets and hats, textiles, uh, machinery, machining. I just recently learned that machining is like cutting metal into shapes. Um, that's what machining is, and so it was known for many different types of things were being made in Philadelphia up until the decline of industry. So it wasn't like Pittsburgh where you only had steel, and when the steel went out, it was a more drastic decline, and with Detroit with automobile manufacturing. So because of that, the decline was slow because it had a diversified manufacturing economy. So it was kind of like both a positive and a negative for the city, whereas decline was slow, but because it was slow, um, they didn't really take action um, to do something about it until like much later. And uh, throughout the series of the Rocky movies, so you can tell from uh, so they filmed Kensington in the first Rocky movie, Rocky 2. Um, by Rocky 3, I guess he was already successful and moved out of the neighborhood, and then he moved back in Rocky 5 to Kensington, and it looked like a. You can still see the structures that were still the same and similar, but there was a lot of graffiti in Rocky 5. I think this was like in the late 80s, or like 89 or 91, somewhere around there, and I believe their like late 80s or 90s was among the worst times in Philadelphia as far as crime. Uh, they beat the total homicide rate this during COVID. I think that was actually like 2022, 2023. There was a record homicides, but before then, uh, violence had peaked in the early 90s, and it slowly started improving, as did much of the U.S. And then much of the U.S. also experienced a spike in violent crime during the COVID pandemic. Um, and so it's kind of went in a similar way with a lot of cities where there was deindustrialization. A lot of people, middle class people, particularly middle class white people, were moving out of the city. So with the exit of people with um, good paying jobs and income, it caused disinvestment in the city. So a lot of um, boarded up homes, storefronts empty. That was a common thing with a lot of or most U.S. cities. But so in that sense, I think I had heard that Sylvester Stallone chose um, to have the movie in Philadelphia because I guess it was kind of a down and out city in 1976. And but since then, uh, I wouldn't say Philadelphia is a down and out city anymore. Um, so there's a lot of so Philadelphia is now big uh, in higher education, Temple University, Drexel University, University of Pennsylvania, um, all within city limits. And then, oh, and LaSalle's in Philadelphia. So a lot of universities in Philadelphia City proper, and is also known for healthcare. Jefferson Healthcare, like Temple and Penn also have their own hospitals. Um, the, the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. So medicine um, and um, and higher education are major industries in Philadelphia now. And you have Comcast headquartered here. Um, there's I think kind of fintech, financial tech, fintech. I think is big everywhere. Uh, so yeah, so the economy of Philadelphia is actually not that bad. It's pretty good, but at the same time, Philadelphia is still among the top largest cities. It is the poorest in terms of median income and poverty rates compared to other large cities. So I think we're talking about cities with 800, 900,000 people or more. Among those cities, Philadelphia is the poorest, in terms of lowest median income and highest poverty rates. So that is true. So I guess in a sense, um, it can still be somewhat of an underdog city, but in some ways things have improved. And I think even though there was, I forget, there was something that happened this year, like in terms of the income, like it's still the poorest large city, but the median income went up. There was some other marker where it was a positive gain in terms of economic well-being for city residents, but it's still the poorest large city. But you have a strong economy, and hopefully they can change it so that more people, more residents can benefit from the economy, and we're no longer the poorest largest city. But so, so I guess Rockies can still be synonymous with Philadelphia in that way, but it's not an underdog in all ways. And I think part of like this idea of Philadelphia being an underdog city is because we're so close to New York City. I think it's like an hour and a half drive from New York City, and because it's so close, and New York City being the center in terms of economic, finance, cultural center of the United States, and Philadelphia being so close, then it seems like we're always in New York City's shadow. But Philadelphia is the sixth largest city in the United States, and even some of the cities that are ahead of it, like Phoenix and Houston, they're only, I think, only larger because their city boundaries are so large. So if we had the same city boundaries as like a Houston or a Phoenix, we might be, I think, the fourth largest city if we did it that way. But yeah, so yeah, there's kind of things going with the idea that it's underdog city and some that is not, but something interesting to think about.